Alright, hello all you crazy people out there, my name is Dragonite, and welcome back to Harvest December. So, in the last part, we sort of met Masaki's dad, and he promptly got knocked out by Kubikirimaru. And in this part, where do you sleep? Is that even relevant? Takaki smiled, but he pointed towards a sleeping bag wedged between several towers of books. Whenever I need a nap, I sleep on top of the books. They're hard, but that helps wake me up easily. That's not a human lifestyle. How does sleep affect how human you are? I didn't like the way you smirk. And I'm quite fond of the way you speak your mind, Towada-san. The weird way Masaki thinks is your influences, father. The weird way Masaki thinks it is your influences, father. Did you just call me father? That's nice. Well, I'll have you know, education isn't something that can be forced on anybody. Takaki sat down on a cheap office chair. It's something you must be willing to acquire. Are you trying to justify your actions towards Kazumi as something you did to further the study of the female species? A god is not a woman, he replied with a straight face. A squirrel decided to morph into a little girl. That is fascinating, alone. That alone is fascinating. She said that her looks weren't something she decided herself, but yet, it wasn't a form forced on her. That means her form comes from cultural influence. Don't you think that's worth studying? I see. Her looks aren't tied to anything like DNA, but she still chose to take the form of something that isn't considered self-sufficient in our world. Like father and son, they're forgetting about the attempted kidnap, which is criminal. Yes, this tunnel vision reminds me of... Professor Konno! Everybody except Dad groaned. Please sign my book! She tripped. She fell into a stack of books about social studies. Uh-oh. Like dominoes, stacks of books began to tilt into one another. We could imagine what would happen if we watched the piles slowly topple. We all looked at each other and grimaced. Of course, we all turned victim to an avalanche of books. Thank you, I will eat this up, I love it so. I hope you're speaking figuratively. Takaki said as he watched Mayuri dance around in circles with her science book clutched to her chest. You said your name was Takaki. Do you understand what's going on? That picture, what does that remind me of? That reminds me of something, but I can't think of what it is. With the haircut and the eyes and the stare. What does that remind me of? I don't know. Anyway, your death of authority should be directly connected to your death literally. Your case is extremely rare. You would think that someone would be dead if they were murdered, Takaki replied as he stared at blank space. It sounds similar to losing your identity as a physical body in a virtual world, I commented. Takaki nodded, satisfied with my answer. A god is a body of authority. To have authority, it means there are set rules. Within the system of rules, they have absolute power, and of course, powerlessness as well. They are also a form of life. However, gods are often considered solely as an entity of authority and nothing else. Why do you think that's the case? Because humans believe they are almighty. That's right! It's a belief that the human race has developed. A god is everything. That alone is a basic belief that is widespread. The idea a god may be alive or can protect or make miracles doesn't actually matter much at all. So, from all this, we could say that a god's authority is loosely connected to its life, which is why Shiro is still alive now, despite losing her powers. Possibly this could be a trait of polytheistic gods similar to their system of load distribution. Takaki smiled at my example. Imagine magic points in a game. It's important, but your character doesn't die even if it's depleted. MP? Yuki tilted her head in consideration. I hesitated to explain. Keeping with your example in gaming, how does the saving mechanism work? Your powers probably aren't selective. It's possible to nullify authority, though, as you see for yourself. I'm interested in your studies in god slaying. Could you show me your research later? I could die of happiness now. Mayoi fainted in ecstasy. Shiro-sama's authority has been nullified. Are you sure? Mayoi looked uncomfortable, knowing her inventions had caused the problem. You know that a certain type of power has a set rule to it. Same goes for other types of power. They may be similar, but they may have rules that can vary ever so slightly. It's the same as us humans. We're built on the same way, but our DNA are different. Of course, there are archetypes, but the influence coming from that is basic, almost irrelevant. Because if it were not this way, all gods would be the same. We would not have the variety. So you're saying it's impossible to regain the exact kind of authority that's lost, Mayoi said. Mayoi looked at Takaki as if to confront him. It's possible to recreate something extremely similar. It will still not be the same, I added. Taking for example the monotheistic gods. Its powers will come from the several seamless types of varying codes from each possible kind of power. There are multiple copies of similar types of authority. If one malfunctions, or another type is...
Hey.
If one malfunctions, another similar type is used. As long as it functions to serve the purpose, the details won't matter too much, similar to the ways we renew our cells and our bodies. But for gods like Shiro, why is there an apostrophe there, whose powers are limited, she has no copy. So once her authority disappears, it's gone. I glanced sideways to see Shiro looking down at the scattered books on the floor. So you're saying it's impossible to regenerate what's lost. I didn't say it was impossible. You're contradicting yourself. I'll rephrase. It won't be regeneration, but more like recreation. A new kind of authority that will compensate for the powers lost. The same way we can mend our broken bones, the bones will always get a little out of shape. However, keep in mind it is impossible to recreate what is lost to its full glory. The same way it's impossible to imagine a complete picture when you only have one piece of a jigsaw puzzle. Alright, now I see what you're trying to say, Kakaki. But can you give me my answer? Ask your question properly. Will I be able to have powers again? Here's my answer. I don't know. Thanks, Takaki. There are stories of fallen angels and of gods being killed, but I've never heard of a god simply losing its powers. Besides, the theory of authority is what I thought of. I'd be curious to know if I was wrong. Shiro looked depressed. Takaki quickly added a few words as if to reason with her. It's similar to Mayoi-san's inventions. Discovering something is one thing. Bringing it up to a practical stage is another. Just the way that Watson and Crick had difficulty. Aren't you interested? What makes you think I'm not? Takaki said with a serious face. He would keep his promise. This was the best situation he could hope to further his studies. This was the best situation he could hope for to further his studies. Shiro let out a thin breath. Her fingers dug into the book she was holding. If she still had her powers, the book she had would be in pieces by now. But now she had only the physical abilities of a normal human girl. All this doesn't give me the solution I want, though. It was rare that Yuki cut in like that. We have to find a way to contain the other gods and spirits rampaging through town right now. You want the gods to obey you. Humans have always used gods for their convenience. I couldn't agree more. Takaki must have liked what Yuki said, but he silently repeated it to himself several times. I believe the situation will only get worse. Why so? Gods may provide, but they also need. Are you implying the need for sacrifice and offerings? The need for sacrifice and offerings? I meant they are influenced by the humans that surround them. How so? I thought a god is an entity above all humans. I see how you think so, since most humans of high station would rarely accept beliefs they think are below them. But consider this fact. The gods we know have shaped themselves as people. They are definitely influenced by us. They would even be influenced by evil. In this world that we live in, do you believe there is more good than evil? I almost said more than one god there, but I think we've established that already. I didn't need to answer that. Then what do we do? Leave it to me. Uh-oh. I'll show those vagabond gods! You're a god too, Dad said lazily. Why are we switching between Takaki and Dad? Anyway, Tagami Godbusters, I'm gonna end this off here. I hope you all enjoyed that. My name is Dragonite, and I will see you all later.